Welcome back to the channel. In this episode, we're going to talk about Sunrise of the Reaping, the new Hunger Games book by Suzanne Collins. But before I get into that, again, as I ask if you could like, subscribe, turn on notifications. That way you know when new videos come on up, when I review and talk about other books. Leave a comment down below. Like I said, I love hearing from you, whether it's a question that you might have or a comment. Just leave one below. I'm always interested. I always love hearing from you, and I always respond back. Also, spread the word. It helps me out. It's free for you, and it does me some good. So, Sunrise on the Reaping. Where really to start? Hamish Abernathy's Hunger Games. This is the one that I thought should have been written instead of the Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes. Though I can kind of see why she wrote that one first, because it gives us the introduction to the Covey, Lucy Gray, who has that kinship with Lenore Dove, Hamish's sweetheart. I thought going into this book that I was waiting for it to come out, and beginning the reading, I thought that his games were just going to be so nightmarishly ghoulish, and that's what drives him to drink. Because it's very poignant early on. I mean, he helps bootleg moonshine, but he doesn't drink. When this book begins, he does not drink. Not even the occasional drink. He just doesn't do it. If he gets a bottle, he usually trades it for something that he can give to Lenore, or something that can help around the house, to help his mom and his brother Sid. The way he gets pulled in to this, and it's ironic that his birthday is on the Reaping every year. So, I mean, this kind of already sets you up for just, how can you have a happy birthday when two kids are going to have to go off and fight to the death? And here, with, this quell, it's double. It's not just two kids, it's four kids. Two boys, two girls from each district. 48 kids, total from the 12 districts. And we think Hamish is going to get away with not getting reaped, with not getting called, even though we all know in the back of our heads that he's got to, because he's the mentor and the victor from District 12 in the Hunger Games trilogy. But it seems like he's going to get out of it. He's the second boy. His name is called, and Hamish is like, hey, okay. Well, the kid makes a bolt for it, and instead of waiting until he gets down, I guess, like a alley, the way Drusilla would put it, why do you shoot this kid in the head in the middle of the street? Now we got this mess to clean up. Like, she doesn't care that the kid just died. This Drusilla, who's really a piece of work. But she's a capital person through and through. And the capital people see the district people as less than piglets, is what she calls the four from District 12. They're piglets. So Lenore goes to try to help the kid's mom. She just wants to cradle her dead son in her arms, and Lenore gets in the way. And Hamish can't see anything happening to Lenore, so he gets in the way and takes the butt of the gun to the head. And obviously the rolling is stopped. They're not filming this now. For those of you who haven't read these, this stuff is all filmed as it's like entertainment for the people in the Capitol. It's really disturbing. It's a disturbing way the Capitol operates. But Drusilla says, well, we need another one. Who are you? And Hamish gives his name, and she writes down his name, and she says, okay, you're the second kid. So in a way, he's drafted into it illegally, not even supposed to be in the games. So, in the games, representing District 12, there's Mesa Lee, who he never really liked. She was kind of stuck up and made a lot of name calling and just wasn't really a nice person. So he doesn't really like her. And then there's Wyatt, who's the son of a bookmaker, and who knows odds like the back of his hand, and his family makes money off of all the betting, and there's quips that are like, well, your old man's going to make money off of you in the games, aren't you? And then there's Luella, the young 12-year-old, who has no chance anyway. But there are some themes that keep coming up in this book. One is sort of Hume's philosophy of the sun rising. What if the sun doesn't rise? It's not guaranteed that the sun will rise. And that's true within the Hunger Games. Especially once you're in the arena. The game makers control everything. So they control whether or not you have sunshine, rain, what things are poison, and then there's the mutations, or the mutations as they call them. Ladybugs that land on you and dig in you, and then they explode, leaving a bloody mess. Deer with spikes coming out of their heels. And some of these mutations, they're programmed to go after certain individuals in the arena and nobody else. So it's almost like you're not really safe. The other theme really is with Hamish. Whoever seems to stick with Hamish dies. He and Luella make allies very early on. Well, she doesn't even survive the parade. The parade through the street of Panem in a chariot. Somebody lights off a firecracker and the horses go nuts, and they both go tumbling over, and she cracks her head on the cement and is dead. And he takes her over to President Snow's mansion and sets her down and starts clapping, making him own her death. Well, what this does is basically Snow has already marked him out for you're not going to, the rest of your life's going to be hell. I'm going to give you, you're either going to make the best poster for me, which is another theme, the poster theme, or we're going to start off with you having the slowest, the most excruciating death in Hunger Games history. And this is the 50th. So that's a lot of Hunger Games to have to go down with that kind of a death. Really what Hamish decides to do, though, is he gets caught up in Beatty's plan, who is the father of a boy in District 3. Beatty is a mentor, and he's got this idea of blowing up the water tank that is in what they call Sub A, which is just kind of below the arena. Thinking, this is going to, what you do is you drown the brain, and you make the arena malfunction. So that's what he's trying to do. He's got all these gadgets, all these things, and his plan is to meet the boy, to set things in motion, to get the stuff that he has, and to go down to try to find the way into Sub A to blow the tank. And he does that. I mean, he literally does it. He blows the tank. But the games don't stop. Yeah, the arena's malfunctioning, but the games don't come to a stop. The arena still is working, and but obviously none of this is seen because the Capitol's not going to let this stuff be seen. So Hamish is trying to paint his own poster, not to be used by anyone. And in a sense, he kind of is, because he's being used by BT. And then by Plutarch, who is assigned to District 12 to take the photos and the video footage and all of that stuff of them. And he even gets in on this, destroy the water tank thing. So Haymitch is already being kind of controlled. But it seems like no matter who he makes an alliance with, Lulu, who is the replacement for Luella, ends up dying. He meets back up with his friend, who becomes his friend. They weren't really friends, but Maceley and him become like sisters, and at some point they actually shared blood through the arena, and they are now actually like blood kin, blood brother, blood sister, and they make an alliance, and she dies. And then he finds the last of the newcomers, because it's the newcomers against the careers. The careers, as we all know, are the ones that are like from Districts 1 and 2, and they're the ones that have been preparing for the games. They prepare all the time, so when they go to the arena, they're going to be the winners. They're the strongest. They're the ones that have the most skills. So it's the newcomers against the careers, and it basically comes down to Haymitch versus Silka at the end of the games, and he finds the generator, which is his other plan on trying to see if I can blow this thing sky high. Besides doing the cornucopia, and at this point he's wondering, is anything I do going to be enough? And he remembers this thing that happens when he tries to throw a rock down at the generator, and there's a force field that bounces the rock back. So in this fight with him and Silka, and I'm skipping a lot of stuff just because I don't want to give away every little detail, but the fight between him and Silka, it's an axe fight, and they're doing injuries to each other, and Hamish's gut is like cut open, and he's trying to keep his intestines in his belly, basically. And his weapons are gone. He feels he's done for. And as she's going to throw the axe, his knees give way and crumple. So the axe goes over his head. And that's when he remembers, you know what? Yeah, there's that ricochet that comes off of the force field. So he stays down, and the axe comes back and gets Drusilla in the head. And at that point, they both hit the ground, and it's a matter of who can stay alive the longest to be crowned the victor. And obviously we know it's him, because he lives on to go into the Hunger Games as a mentor. Now, the games overall were not as bad as I thought they were going to be. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, how nightmarish is this going to be? The nightmare really comes after the games, because President Snow has it in for him. He's like, enjoy your homecoming. And you already kind of are like, okay, what's going to happen? Well, when he gets off the train, it's early in the morning, because he gets back to District 12 after 10 days of going to all these different parties where he's like kept in a cage, and he's not really allowed to mingle with the people. He's kept up like a prisoner, the prisoner that he's supposed to be, the rebel kind of that he is. The rascal is the part that he plays, which he now sees himself as basically just as a jackass. But he comes back, and what happens? He finds that his mom's house is on fire, and that people, they're trying to put it out, and they can't. And his mom and his brother Sid can't get out. They're trapped in the house, and they die in the fire. Obviously, not an accident. Because he says in the story, my mom knew better than anybody how to put out how to kindle a fire and how to put one out. Nobody knew better than her. So that's one thing, part of the homecoming. Lenore Dove is still there, his sweetheart. And he bought her, the day of the reaping, he bought her a bag of candies, gumdrops, from Mesa Lee's candy store, her family's candy store, and gives it to his brother to say, here, give this to Lenore. So they reunite after the games, and they're in basically like what her would be like, I guess, the backyard. And she's got a bag of gumdrops, and he's not even thinking. He just like kind of feeds her one, and she's like, "Oh, thanks for the gumdrops, by the way." And he's like, "Which ones?" She's like, "The ones that Sid gave me. They're under my pillow." And that's when he realizes this isn't the gumdrops that he gave her. These were on the ground, and he tells her to spit them out. So she spits out the one, and he tells her, throw up the other one, the one that she swallowed. And she's trying, and she can't because she barely ate anything because she was under arrest and on the Peacekeeper's base for 5 days. Basically, without knowing it, he poisons her. He's feeding her the gumdrops, and he poisons her. He kills her. And so, again, whoever sticks with him dies. So the only thing that he can think of to do is to just push everybody away. You're safer away from me. Obviously, he's got the victor's village. It's the perfect way. I can, stuff's brought to him. He gets his weekly winnings from being the winner. So he basically pushes himself away from everyone and everything except for first sleep syrup, and then he turns to Nepenthe, which is in the poem Nevermore by Edgar Allan Poe, The Raven. And that's another huge theme that keeps coming up because Lenore is in, the name is in the poem, so this keeps coming up. And he feels he has nothing to live for, but he makes the promise to Lenore that he will live, that he will try to stop the sunrise on the reaping, the sun from rising on the reaping. So the way it ends in the epilogue is it ends with basically Katniss and so I try to think of the name offhand, and it's not a common name, and I didn't even remember until I read it again. PETA. It's with them, and he says, I'm a different kind of drinker now. I don't drink to forget. I do it more out of habit. He says, but my time is limited because my liver is shot. He's basically drunk to forgive all of the tributes that were lost in his Hunger Games. Then he has to remember that, hey, on my birthday every day, I get to mentor 2 kids to their death. What kind of present is that for winning the Hunger Games? So, yeah, it's a powerful book, and it's a book that, I remember asking the question when I was reading the Hunger Games trilogy is like, why would you have a kid? Why would you want kids in this kind of a world where from ages 12 to 18, they can be picked to go into this arena and be slaughtered by other kids? For that 6-year period, they're eligible to be reaped, to be quelled. And it's an interesting question. And I mean, if you have any thoughts on it, leave it down below. I'd love to hear, your thoughts of it, on it. Would you have kids in this world, and why do you think people would, considering the fact? But obviously for Haymitch, there's no more loving. He's done. He can't love anybody anymore. Anybody that he's going to love is going to die. He just feels that President Snow's got that over him. So it's a powerful book, and the power, I think, really hit me at the end, after the games, the returning home. And I think that's what Suzanne Collins meant. I think she might have hooked a lot of people like me, thinking that his Hunger Games were going to be so horrible that that's what drove him to drink. Not that it was what happened after the games that turned him to drink, to forget. So, to me, when I started this book, I was like, will it live up to the hype? Can it live up to the hype? And I thought it did. I thought the ending, the post games of it did. And I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads, and it's a 5-star book. I like the whole series except for the ballads. When I just couldn't get in with Cornelius Snow, knowing what he becomes. I couldn't sympathize with him. I couldn't empathize or sympathize or anything with him. Lucy Gray was sort of an enigma. So could I with her? I don't know. This one though, top draw, good book. I recommend reading it. I don't think you need to read the first one. I don't think you need to read the Hunger Games trilogy to start with this one, if that's what you want to do. But good book, 5 stars. So yeah, I recommend it. So again, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you know when new videos come on out. Leave a comment down below. I love hearing from you, whether it's a question on the books that I'm reading or whether it's thoughts on the videos or something that you think I would want to read, that I might, something that you might want me to read that and do a review and a chat on. Leave it down below. I love hearing from you, and I always respond. And again, spread the word. It's free for you, and it helps me out. I appreciate you all for your support. It means a lot. So, yeah, until next time, as always, keep YouTube literate, and God bless.